After a long, brutal-winded multi-release date delay, LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga has officially been out for close to a month now. There's been a lot of discussion around this game, which has been so exciting to see because I think the last LEGO game to receive coverage to this level may have been LEGO Dimensions. I've been playing video games religiously for over a decade now, and LEGO games have been almost double that time for me. I have a lot to say, and I really wanted to express my love for this form of entertainment. The content about this from other LEGO YouTubers has been pretty disappointing in my eyes, so I wanted to be able to make a video that I wish one of these people would be making themselves. I've separated my thoughts out into a general overview and a review first, then we'll go in depth into the good, the bad, and the ugly for those that want to stick around for that. Like I said, there's a lot on all sides here, and I can't wait to talk about this. Hi, it's me from the future. A quick disclosure, this was edited and recorded over the month that the game has been out now. Just the other day, TT Games released the patch that fixed a ton of issues, including not one, not two, but 3 game-breaking bugs that halted story progression. One of these bugs heavily affected our play session, and I go in depth on the issue at the end of the video. This bug has in fact been fixed. I've tested this myself even. I just wanted to come in here now and make that clear before we move on. I've put around 32 hours into the game total now. I have finished all 9 episodes, but there is a story there that falls under the bad and the ugly, so we'll get to that later. I have 100% on 3 of the planets so far, being Kamino, Hoth, and Tatooine, but I haven't yet finished all of the side missions on Tatooine, just FYI. I've marked about 30% completion on each of the planets that have been available, from the Phantom Menace to around the Force Awakens eras, and the Phantom Menace has been 100% across all levels, mini-kits, challenges, etc. The remaining episodes currently sit at about 80% completion with each level and a 45% overall game completion. Yeah! I have played every single LEGO game that is released, and I have 100% saves on a multitude of the LEGO games. I make mention of this to prove that the LEGO game system and mechanics are rooted in my DNA at this stage because, like some of you, LEGO Star Wars was likely one of my earliest entry points into the series of Star Wars itself. It's definitely one of my earliest memories about the franchise, and it's stuck with me ever since. LEGO Star Wars has been a part of TT's games blood for decades now, with 6 total games across tons of play systems. I've been a fan for years, though the repetitiveness was starting to show around my teens. Once the series transitioned into the open world for the first time, there was only so much that they could do to make the games feel fresh again. I'm happy to say that LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga is not only a breath of fresh air, but it's possibly TT's best work yet. A character roster that feels rewarding to get someone new even after 30 hours of playtime, some added mechanics for new puzzles that make the reward of collecting more engaging, a new type of collectible that works as a currency that makes 100%ing worlds feel so much more rewarding than it used to. It adds so much new to the fundamentals while still holding that same charm that it's been famous for, but the game does have some rocky beginnings. Strange reworks to mechanics that weren't really an issue before, like a first confusing character roster wheel, most of the game's pacing that has you progressing through so much of the movie's plot in open world activities, then eventually playing a level that only takes 5 minutes to finish, puzzles that feel uninspired or repetitive only because of how long this game takes to reach 100% completion, and a lack of more character specific abilities where one class in particular is heavily underutilized in comparison. And worst of all, there's a report of a handful of game breaking bugs. LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga is a great game that I hope TT are proud of, even with the awful news about crunch and delays that plagued this game's final years in development. It's a celebration of all movies for all fans with some additions and interesting new kinks. The most fascinating part of it is that you may see the greatness of this game as early as hour 1, or in our case around hour 5 to 6, or tragically maybe hour 30 plus. Right, there's Finn, there's Poe, there's Yoda, and they're like, hey, we're gay now, and Yoda's like, I ain't having that. So let's get into the good, the bad, and the ugly of this game. LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga allows you to play through the entirety of episodes 1 to 9. Episodes 8 and 9 up until this point had never been represented in 2 LEGO games before, so that alone had me and many people intrigued. You have the choice of starting at either trilogy's opening episode, but you have to play in chronological from that point on. You're free to start one of the other trilogies at any time time you would like. I decided to start with The Phantom Menace and play through the series in its chronological order. This is something that is somewhat advised against doing now in retrospect. I actually do think that starting with A New Hope is the best way to play for the better introduction to what this game is and how it operates. The game's stories will take place throughout the open world, where you'll travel to each world from Star Wars and take on a series of side missions, solving puzzles and challenges alike, finding hidden secrets while exploring maps from all known planets in the movies. I was spending a lot of my time admiring the details and how well recreated these environments have been. The Falcon's different. It's the rise of Skywalker's build of the Falcon now. Yeah, they've changed the models.
To be honest,
it doesn't have the, look, it's got the little hinge there, so all of the panels are connected,
right,
and it's got all of the individual tiles are the blue thing. That's how I can tell it was the new one. Once you've finished exploring, you're free to progress onto the level. Each movie is made up of 5 levels, which usually consists of a vehicle level or 2, a boss fight, and an exploration level or 2. Some movies are made very differently to others. Phantom Menace, for example, leads with 2 vehicle levels to open with, leading on to 1 boss fight in the middle, a small Gungan battle level right before closing on the 3rd final vehicle level of the movie. If you compare that to something like Revenge of the Sith, which actually features no vehicle levels at all on a technicality and instead features 3.5 boss fight levels. While the episodes may lack a good consistency, they at least offer a variety throughout to keep you engaged. A general episode can take around an hour and a half to 2 hours, with the added open world traveling given most levels are a quick couple of minutes each. Sometimes some of them are closer to 15 though. With 45 levels totaling across all episodes, it does make for a nice lengthy experience. Each level is set with some mini kits to unlock and some challenges to complete as bonus objectives too. These challenges are a semi-new thing. Games like DC Villains and Marvel Superheroes 2 had open world challenges, which this game does too, but this is the first game that I know that features the Assassin's Creed Grand Theft Auto level challenge approach. Mini kits have also been shortened from 10 to 5 per level, something that DC Villains also did. I love this change a lot because I think that 10 just becomes tiresome, especially with 45 levels in total, making that the 225 mini kits in the game is a pretty fine number. They are pretty basic to collect, where most of them are just sitting around. They're also available immediately from the map, but they do return in this game nonetheless. The game really does take you throughout the entirety of the movie's plots. Famously, Attack of the Clones was a very rushed movie in the previous LEGO games, with the first game starting at Kamino, which skips almost 40 minutes of the original film. The complete saga does start out with Zam Wesell's chase, but now in the Skywalker Saga, you actually open with the assassination attempt that's made on Padme. In typical narrative fashion, you do still skip through a couple of things. Immediately upon landing on Tatooine, Anakin has already entered the pod race. Order 66 is just a simple cutscene, and the entirety of Luke's island in The Last Jedi is purely set to open world. There's just too much to focus on here, so TT Games had to make a couple of compromises. By the time I made it to the original trilogy, I was used to how the story was playing out and as quick as it was, so I kinda got used to the pacing from here. But when I was playing The Phantom Menace, I was getting increasingly worried as to how fast we were moving through the story. During our play sessions of The Phantom Menace, we decided to spend a long time exploring Tatooine, since we had realized that we were at the halfway point through the game now. The next stage from this point was Coruscant, which offered a lot more in exploration in what Tatooine had, and this was where we started exploring the character wheels, the class system, and the open world exploration. Playing throughout the story gives you characters that represent one of the 9 new classes introduced, which are crucial for puzzle solving around the open world. Bounty hunters will be needed for bounty hunter assignments. Some side missions are only accessible via a scoundrel. Protocol droids can understand every language and must be used to decipher some alien speech. Character abilities being used to solve puzzles isn't anything new by today's standards, but this design has changed things by some margin. Each class will have a set of unique abilities that's used throughout the world. The hero class in particular is mostly used for the classic grapple gun. The astromechs have their own access points as usual, and the scoundrel has an idea marker that shows points of interest for them to shoot, though interestingly enough, it's been reported that this mechanic is only set during the story levels and it's never used in the open world activities. The game also introduces a skill tree where, though it may not be as deep as most other games, it's still a a welcome change to the LEGO game formula. There's a core upgrade tree and a class-specific tree where you have more options on upgrading attack damage, stud rewards for puzzle completion, defense upgrades, and more. The upgrade tree also works for the most traditional extras that have been found in prior LEGO games. You can outright buy extras like fast build, extra health, attract studs, and most importantly, and game-changing for me personally, the collectible detector. There's still extras that appear in the game, like the gag ones of replacing weapons with other LEGO objects, and most importantly, the LEGO stud multipliers, but there's no longer such thing as red bricks to collect, as even these extras are available to purchase immediately. Mumble Mode Extra is also available for free, since I guess they figured that players would complain if it wasn't. How you buy these great extras is through studs and kyber bricks and data cards. Data cards are exclusively used to get the extras. One extra brick will cost one data card, and there's one data card for every world just sitting around somewhere on the map. They're very easy to see, and they also show up on your mini-map. Kyber bricks are one of the biggest changes to the LEGO formula, as these take place of essentially the game's gold bricks, but this time they do a lot more than what those did. Kyber bricks are a form of currency in this game, and you'll be using these to purchase your core upgrades. There's over 1,000 of these to collect throughout the game, and they're all scattered throughout the hub worlds, but you also earn them from completing certain puzzles, side missions, and from playing through the story. Upgrades can cost a fair few, so it's nice that there's so many of these to collect, and most of these are a cakewalk. There were even moments we discovered while playing where we could make minor exploits in the world to quickly grab a few bricks without following the proper solution. Using a method of using a force character to force an object someone is standing on over to the brick that's floating in the air worked like a charm and became our go-to method. This, from our playtime, is the only time that we've been able to make our own solution to certain puzzles, and because of how frequent we've been able to do this, it feels like it's something that was actually made intentionally, but I did still want to mention it.
Okay, hang on. It looked like I slide off, but it looks like it makes contact as well, though. Yeah!
Currency is also spent on unlocking whatever characters you want. Most are available to purchase after completing a segment in story missions or completing side quests around the world, which is the norm for LEGO games anyway. There are loads of other things that you can spend your currency on through the game though, like the rumor system. Just about everything can be revealed and spelled out to you, the player, without having to wander around aimlessly or looking up a guide yourself. You can reveal what the challenges are for every level, where each of the kyber bricks are located, and how to access each of the side missions. I like this feature because it means that even after you have all the stud multipliers, you'll still actually have a good use for the studs in the long run. The humor remains the same as always, with some fun visual gags which are my favorite. There's also some really great fun references and Easter eggs and jokes that poke fun at all of the movies, not just the sequels, okay? But I also spotted what I think were some references to things like Robot Chicken, the original LEGO games, Christmas skins, even this cool line of dialogue that I think is a reference to the DLC level from the Force Awakens LEGO game that TT adapted.
There's actually an interesting story. Who are you calling self-indulgent?
That just about does it for the good parts of the game, which tragically leads us to the bad side of things.
Yeah! Yeah! The racist!
Let's talk about pacing again. The Phantom Menace opens with the open world segment that covers the first 20 odd minutes of the movie. With a brief opening, you'll already find yourself on Naboo talking to Jar Jar, and then you'll be in the sub. It takes around the same length of the movie, though it's disappointing to see what gets chosen as an open world activity versus an actual level. After that, the second level in the game is Anakin's pod race, an entire hour into the movie. And while it doesn't take you just a couple of seconds finishing the Gungan sub to immediately go into the pod race level, it does really feel jarring that it's moving so quickly throughout the movie's story. There's a lack of consistency here with the episodes where some of them will open immediately into a level for you and it feels very natural, but some of them instead open in the free roam. It's a weird choice for what movies get the level treatment and which ones don't, and it can feel a little disjointed sometimes.
Well, I'm dressed.
Oh my
Oh,
god.
and each other.
Gotta go back to the bridge.
It's what the fandom wanted.
We're all caught up
Love
over
it.
there.
Gone is the regular character wheel of holding down the triangle button on PlayStation in our case to change out one of your 2 party members and immediately switch to a new character. Here you have a roster of characters that you can choose from where you can select to have them in a lineup sheet to choose as you play, and boy is that confusing the first time around. Constantly swapping people around when you actually meant to play as them, and if they were already in your party, then that meant swapping to them placed you in their shoes wherever they were currently standing in the world, instead of just changing into them on the spot wherever your position was. This made co-op free roam incredibly difficult to understand when one player has one of the party members following them and the other player desperately needs them for a puzzle. On that note, the game advertised that there are 300 plus playable characters. There are, but how great of a number that is kind of a stretch. There's at least somewhere between maybe 10 to 20 unique characters with special abilities to help you progress throughout puzzles or just for a good time. Some of the characters don't actually have any special abilities, but you can play as someone like the Wampa, for example. Any character that doesn't fit like this, those are just thrown into the extras tab for characters. But again, to reiterate, there's about 10 to 20 of them that actually have unique abilities. And the abilities are just tied towards the character class. There's about 10 to 20 that are actually unique to play as, so I feel that the 300 is kind of a stretch to advertise. TT also counted several costume variants as characters, I believe. So Anakin Attack of the Clones, Anakin Revenge of the Sith, Anakin Hooded, Anakin Cape, Anakin No Hood, Anakin Poncho. These all count as individual characters, and they all do the same because they're all Jedi class. It feels very similar to when EA classed Chewbacca Injured and Yoda Hooded as special unique costumes for Battlefront 2.
So it just cost me 800,000 studs just to get all of the variations of Palpatine. Essentially, Palpatine's an $800,000 character versus other Sith that's like Count Dooku alone was just 200,000.
The classes, while adding variety to the game, also slightly complicate some things. Where in prior games characters had abilities that best suited them, here the ability is whichever best suits the class over the character. Villain class is the only class in the game that holds bombs and explosives to blow up silver Lego objects, which is a classic mechanic in Lego games, but because General Grievous is listed as a villain class, that means he can throw bombs. It's a very strange mechanic, and things like this can complicate things when you try to use prior Lego game knowledge and it ends up slowing you down. Boba Fett can't do the thing that you want him to do because that was the other game. Here, he's a bounty hunter, so he can only shoot gold objects. This isn't something that Super Battle Droids can do, which was what they could do in the first Lego Star Wars Clone Wars game. Using smaller characters to fit through small doors was a staple for almost 20 years of LEGO games. That's now been removed. Little Anakin can't go through that, or the Ewoks, they can't go through those. Instead, it's exclusively a protocol droid mechanic. Why can C-3PO do this? Missions in free roam are constantly asking you to leave that planet and go somewhere else. There's the odd mission that actually does take place where you are, but most of the others will ask you to fly around to the other side of the galaxy and to go somewhere else instead. This means that you're constantly sitting through these load times of ships traversing. It seems like the only way to unlock all of the open world maps is to progress through the story, and that might seem good on paper, but it heavily prevents 100% completions of planets when you're playing in chronological order, and in order to finish missions on Tatooine, you have to travel all the way to Exegol in episode 9. Knowing that you need all of these planets unlocked can make exploring the story a lot less appealing. The character classes in the game are needed instantly for exploring. Phantom Menace, though, will open with some puzzles that are unsolvable until you progress much further into the game because you don't have an astromech droid. Because I didn't start with either of the other trilogies, and I'm not so sure how much this affects exploration in those movies, I was frequently left irritated that I had to run all over the map, and I was only able to finish a handful of puzzles because I didn't yet have a bounty hunter character. If playing in order, then the earliest time that you may get a scavenger class, which ends up being one of the most useful classes in the game, isn't actually until the ending of episode 6. Again, as repeated before, sometimes exploring just isn't worth it because the game was showing me all sorts of things that I really wanted to do, but I had no view in sight on how I could do any of those. It's only in retrospect have I figured it out now. While exploring in co-op, you're both free to either wander wherever, which we really love. However, if one player tries to leave the planet planet for completing a mission like I mentioned earlier, player 2 has to go with you. I can see how it would complicate things having 2 generated worlds on screen at once, but that's what makes it much more frustrating that every side mission on a planet has to be completed somewhere else. Of all the classes, there's also no flying character. Django and Boba can hover for a few seconds, but neither of them can fly. Not even the Geonosian, who has actual wings, can fly. Flying is what makes the chase of 100% that much more fun, because flying around makes it feel more achievable, so it's a gravely missed mechanic here.
He can't fly. What?
Why?
He's got wings! That is some... That's some...
We
Well-
should save that whole conversation with you be like, I mean this character, so we can fly.
He can't fly!
The character voice acting is a little bit all over the place as well. Clone Wars actors return to record new lines for their characters, and some of the side characters are voiced by the actors from the films. But some of the voice acting is really rough around the edges. Some of the line delivery repeated throughout can get very irritating as well.
There's big race tomorrow on Bunty Eve. You can enter my pod. For the Republic! For democracy!
Why have they got them always saying the same lines? For the Republic! For democracy!
The game is also very confusing on establishing when the open world environments should be set. This isn't such a big deal, but it's definitely worth pointing out since it will break some players' immersions. It's cool to see that things like Takodana's map will change to best fit its narrative, but you'll also have clone quest givers during the Phantom Menace, or cases of dialogue that's occurring way too early in the story.
Maybe Anakin was right about that.
What? Why would he say that? What does he mean?
Level design for some vehicle levels has also been questioned throughout its execution. Because we played the whole thing in co-op, we didn't really have any trouble with the levels. However, I've heard really bad things about the pod racing level and the Zam Whistle chase. A mixed bag on some poor controls, bad AI, and strange difficulty spikes, but I can comment on the terrible way that the indoor speeder chase level plays out. For a very long time, we were just waiting and waiting and waiting for the final Stormtrooper objective to appear, and eventually it resulted in us turning the game off and restarting the level because we found that we were just too far ahead of the troopers. We decided to hold back our speed, and that's how that issue was solved.
Whoever designed this level needs to fix it, dude! I've been stuck on the same point for hours, bro!
Naturally, there's also a whole lot of bugs throughout the game. They are for the most part the fun kind of bugs, where items aren't spawned incorrectly, or something that really shouldn't be happening is happening, but these aren't game-breaking. We will get to that. Those were some points on some of the more bad side of things, and now it's on to the ugliest of ugly, the time that the game broke on us. You'll notice that there wasn't too much discussion in this about the sequel trilogy for the game, and that's because our game actually bugged out on us halfway through The Force Awakens. The trilogy that I was the most excited about playing through because of their underrepresentation in the LEGO games eventually glitched out on us. After contacting Traveler's Tales, they sent me an email that told me that they are well aware of the situation and that they have been trying to patch it out. That was 4 weeks ago now, as of recording this video. We eventually decided to restart and make a new save just for the sake of claiming that at least we did finish the game. So I have officially played through all of the sequel games, but I was still left very frustrated. As of recording this, again, this still hasn't been fixed. I mentioned that a cool feature is essentially the open world will change as you progress through the stories. Clones now turn on you after finishing the Order 66 Yoda level and other things like that. Takodana is no different, where the map will change from the first time that you arrive to now looking damaged and wrecked when you leave. Again, as mentioned way earlier, the map is almost ripped from Battlefront 2, which I really loved and is completely different to how it appears in the Force Awakens game. But this really cool feature is actually what ended up screwing us over. Exploring Takodana before progressing the story is what killed it. The game tells you to go and speak to Mars, where you'll get this cutscene followed by Rey following voices and solving some puzzles with BB-8 to open some doors downstairs. This all occurs in the open world, by the way. It's not part of the level. Instead of doing this, we ran around collecting bricks and having our fun exploring the map. We believe that this is what caused the game to freak out on us because it reads as us finishing activities that should be occurring on a different Takodana map, but we're still on the normal first map that we arrived on. which we think confused the game. Every time we would enter her castle, we were told to go and speak to her even though she stands right at the doorway and offers us nothing in return. Downstairs, there are no door puzzles at all. We simply cannot progress. This pointed out to me that while I'm okay with playing through the episodes in their order from their starting point, I hate that you must also progress through the open world exploration. It was at this point that I was hoping for TT to release a patch that could allow you to immediately access the next level from the mission select screen instead. They don't allow you to do this though because you'll be skipping cutscenes and jumping ahead, but I can't see a better solution to this. I don't want to jump in sometime soon and thankfully have Ray tell Finn that she's going to go check out the voices and have confirmation that TT fixed my specific bug. I want TT to instead release something that's going to help everybody else's issues out there who has open world problems. Because after dealing with this, it's hard to view the doors per level option from the original LEGO Star Wars game from 20 years ago as a worse alternative to now. As stated at the beginning, this has been fixed. It doesn't appear though that TT have made a way for you to be able to skip over any open world activities, so hopefully the open world is actually fixed now, because I still think that that would be the better way to go about this for the future, but nonetheless. That was my hefty in-depth look on the LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga game. I want to thank those of you who have watched all the way to the end and sticking by, because this was a pretty big endeavor to do. Let us know what your thoughts are on the game below, because I'm really curious, and let me know if there were any things that I missed, any positives or any cons. Thank you again very much. We hope to see you in the next one.
Well, I hope you're having fun. Bullshit. I got what the fuck was that? What are you doing? What is this?